So I'm Mhearai Hamelin. I am part of the Kingdom of Ansteora, and I am actually local to the Barony of the Steppes. Oh my gosh. There we go. Sorry, my presentation got all out of whack. So I myself am a newcomer. I joined in April, and after my first event, a month later, I became deputy to our hospitaller, which in Ansteora is what we call the chatelaine. And I've been helping a lot with newcomers. I actually stepped up to be acting hospitaller during the summer. And so I've gained a lot of knowledge. I've gained a lot of insight, and I've actually been the first person that a lot of our newcomers have met throughout May to now. And so I kind of figured out different ways to explain offices, and I wanted to kind of teach some of the things that I've learned, but also kind of give some examples from my own barony of how we've changed things and how that's helped get newcomers more involved in the SCA in general. And so and I put in instructions. I'm Mhearai Hamelin. I'm from the Barony of Steppes, Kingdom of Ansteora, and I am deputy to our hospitaller or chatelaine and deputy to our Minister of Arts and Sciences. And then about this class, newcomers are possibly the most important part of the SDA, as we can't continue to grow without recruiting newcomers. With the recruitment done and Newcomers Academy planned, there's more to do. Newcomers have many questions about all the things in the SDA, and some of the ways we have to explain things we do may be confusing to them. The biggest confusion comes from officers, what they do, and how newcomers can get involved. Knowing what the officers do and who to contact is important. So I came up with easy, mundane ways to explain the officers to new people, because I realized how we introduce ourselves, like I'm the hospitaller, I welcome the newcomers, can be very confusing for our new people. So I started coming up with ways to explain each of the offices. And this is at more of a local level, because that's when more people tend to be involved. So with Baron and Baronesses, they're the leaders of the baronies. I tend to explain them as they're the main figureheads for local-sized groups. They work with a team of officers to run the barony, and they run court and give awards to members of the populace. I've discovered that this is the easiest way to get people to understand what barons and baronesses are without going into the full depth detail that we can in fact go into. And then with Seneschal, who is one of our administrative officers, they're the modern equivalent of a president or CEO of a company. They work with the barony, autocrats, and venues for events and contracts, and they direct activities and are knowledgeable of the rules set forth by the society. As was explained to me when I first joined, if you notice that someone might be just doing something that is against the rules or could harm another person, speak with the Seneschal, because they are likely to know if what is happening is an issue or not. Hospitaller / chatelaine, welcomers and newcomers. Ansteora has started calling ourselves NPC quest givers, because we are similar to NPCs who teach people how to play a video game. And so we give tutorials and basic knowledge to new people through Newcomers Academy, and then we welcome newcomers and make sure they have everything they need for events through things like Gold Key, answering any questions if we didn't recently have a Newcomers Academy about what to expect at your first event, things like that. We actually are working in Ansteora to come up with a newcomer's quest to give to people, so they can see all the things and get involved and find exactly what they're interested in being part of. Exchequer manages the money of the group. They're like the accountant. They deal with all the money and budget requests, and donations go to them either directly or indirectly, like through Gate if the Exchequer is not immediately available, so that they can be added to the funds of the local group. I learned this at my first event when I decided to make a donation, so I try to make sure that that information is given to newcomers, so that way if they want to make a donation, they know where to make sure it gets to. I lumped all of the marshals into one category because they all essentially do the same thing. They're the referees of combat and archery and missiles. They make sure that during these events, during heavy fighting tournaments, rapier tournaments, archery tournaments, youth tournaments, rules are followed and everything is safe, and they make sure that all the equipment is up to standards for what we do. We don't want anyone with broken armor, broken bows, broken thrown weapons. We don't want any safety issues, so they make sure that they keep everything safe for everyone involved. And then we have the herald, which I've noticed heralds are the most confusing for a lot of people. So they help register they help the populace register names and devices. They help people also research these things because a lot of people don't understand the rules and names around devices, or the rules around names and devices, and understand how to find that information. But they also make sure someone is available to announce in court when it is held. I myself have seen an event where the day of, a herald had to be found for one of the courts. So anyone who's interested in doing court heraldry, that is the person that they would want to go to, is the local herald for that group. Minister of Arts and Sciences, they're in charge of scheduling and organizing arts and sciences practices, classes, and meetings outside of events. Certain events will have their own person in charge of scheduling classes, so it's not always the minister that does so. I like to compare them to the dean of the arts in a college, whether it's the SCA and the SCA local or SCA societal level. And then also I put in there, because I know my kingdom does a lot of this, they keep track of arts and sciences that are done to put together a report and show what their group is doing. I've noticed that a lot of our ministers of arts and sciences do this. I'm not sure if everyone does, but this is also something that can be pointed out to newcomers so they can also let people know what they're working on, and it can be seen at a wider level than just the people around them. Minister of Children is in charge of organizing activities that children can safely take part in during events and some meetings. Not every meeting has children, but when there are, I've seen our personal Minister of Children organize some stuff. And then background checks are required for the position to make sure that children are safe. I always point that out if anyone's ever interested in being Minister of Children. The historian keeps records of events, practices, growth, awards, and more. Make sure that past knowledge of the local group is accessible by the populace. I had a newcomer think that historian was the person you go to looking for medieval history, but I had to explain that there's a different structure for the historian within a group. The chronicler puts together newsletters to announce news, put out messages from officers, and give updates on current situations if there are updates to give. And I like to compare them to an editor and director of a newspaper or magazine, because that's the easiest mundane comparison that we can make. Social media officer / team. My barony has a team. I know there's been a couple that have switched to a team aspect rather than one officer and deputies. They moderate social media groups, pages, and more, and they can be broken up into a team as social media presence grows and as more social media platforms start to be created. A few years ago, TikTok was very small, and now it's big, and we actually have our own person in charge of our TikTok for our barony. And our kingdom has a deputy for every single type of social media. So as social media grows, the teams will often grow as well. The web minister maintains the website of the group, keeping information up to date as it changes over time. And they keep in contact with officers to update information on websites such as changed officers, events coming up, changes to group information, etc. And then this is the picture of our practice before Christmas. We had at least 10 people who joined in 2023 in this group practice alone. This is our combined fighter and arts and sciences. And because we combine them, we actually have people who are very, very dedicated to multiple paths because they are able to do both in one setting. And I think all but one of those newcomers in this photo have either become a deputy or an officer within our barony. And this picture was actually taken by Mhearai Hamelin, who is a centurion in our kingdom and is also our social media officer, who leads the team that works with the social media. And then I wanted to speak on newcomers' impact because, again, we have a lot of newcomers who become deputies and officers. They bring us growth. They often want to have massive involvement, and they bring new perspectives. As everyone knows, newcomers help us grow and continue to live the dream. The more newcomers we're able to recruit and maintain, the more we can keep the dream alive and share it with more people. And part of that recruitment and maintaining them is letting them be involved. We want them to be involved in local groups, in kingdom level, and we should welcome them to jump in, but at the same time, check in with them to make sure they don't get burnt out. I know burnout is a thing. I've had my entire barony worried about me getting burnt out. So I know that that's a big thing that needs to be addressed, especially when newcomers want to be involved in everything. I am one of those newcomers who is guilty of helium hand. But by involving these newcomers, we bring new perspectives into the STA that we may not have had before. Reaching out to newcomers to ask if there's anything they wish we would have gone over in Newcomers Academy can help us make sure that we are equipping newcomers with everything they need. Our barony actually tried something new and shortened all of our Newcomers Academy to 30-minute segments once a month. And we actually found that there's more retention and people keep returning because it's not taking 2-3 hours and taking up an entire practice to teach them what it is that we are trying to give them the knowledge of. And we've been able to retain newcomers quite well. We had over 50 newcomers join our barony this past year, and most of them are still active. And a lot of them show up to practices very, very regularly, maybe miss 1 or 2 every month or 2. And my personal story, because I myself am a newcomer, I joined in April. My first meeting was actually in Newcomers Academy going over titles and awards. And it was the inclusivity that made me want to come back. My second or third meeting, I met some amazing people who later became my mentors. And within a month of joining, I had asked every question I could think of, learned everything I could think I needed to learn. About that time, I became deputy of the social media officer. This was prior to us having a team. And then after my first event, I became deputy of our hospitaler because his rule was you have to attend at least one event. I spent most of that event welcoming newcomers and teaching them the things I knew. So he was 100% happy to make me his deputy at the end of the event. I later stepped down as social media officer to step up as Minister of Arts and Sciences deputy, which I also had applied for. And our minister right now is more involved with the heavy fighting track, but loves the arts and sciences, and we have a lot of the same ideas. And then the 2 photos attached are me at my first event, which was back in May. It was Steps Warlord. And then the event where I got my first award, that was Steps Artisan in August. And that was my 4th event. I have in total attended 6 or 7 events. And at every single event, I have competed in Bardic or Artisan or taught some sort of class. And being this involved is something that a lot of our newcomers want to do. And so being able to have them involved and be active is important. Okay, so I see that Newcomers Academy sounds like an awesome idea. At NAMSTAORA, we are actually working on creating a rubric with specific classes that we go over like every 6 months to a year, where we go over things like what is heraldry, break it down really easy for people to understand, what to expect at your first event, camping, garb, things that seasoned players don't even think of, but we realize that newcomers need. So we do like 1 meeting a month. It can be in person or over Zoom, depending on what your meeting and practice parameters are, where you have them, where you sit down and you teach the newcomers about things. And there's even a graduation ceremony that you can hold where you give everyone a token for making it through Newcomers Academy. In newcomers class, our My Barony specifically tries to keep it in 30 minutes. We've actually noticed that a lot of the newcomers really appreciate that because it does give them that time to go do other things, because we hold ours at the same place for our arts and sciences and combat practices. And we do physical meetings for Newcomers Academy, but you can do a Zoom. If you know that there are people who would be interested in this, you can always reach out. I know that in my kingdom, there are a lot of Newcomers Academies done on Zoom. And yeah, 30 does sound like it is a good way. And we often actually do, especially like on the first Tuesday of the month, we often do a like after practice dinner or like late night ice cream, because our practices are 7 to 9 on Tuesdays. So we'll often go to Brahms and get some ice cream and spend some time with all of the newcomers. And I ran Newcomers Academy for 3 months, and I actually am the reason that my barony added a safety Newcomers Academy, talking about, you know, what you do when you notice a safety issue, when you can call hold, which is anytime there's a safety issue. Some of the newcomers were surprised that you can, in fact, yell hold and stop court, even if your king and queen are talking, if there's a safety issue. So I learned this because my husband is a fighter, and I learned all of the fighting stuff while he was learning it, and realized that a lot of our newcomers didn't know these things. So if you've noticed that there's something that newcomers should have knowledge about, you can also bring that up. And I am 100% down to help anyone if they want to start putting together a Newcomers Academy. And then this is perfect because this is open discussion about questions, ideas, things that you guys do. And I do have a handout that we didn't have time to get put into anything because there was some technical issues. But I would like to hear a lot of feedback. I would like to learn more about what the rest of the known world does.